What's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture?
We're talking about the swine flu pandemic and the steps you must take to be prepared.
Some officials describe this move as being similar to a declaration ahead of a hurricane. The president now declaring the H1N1 outbreak a national emergency.
Catch it when it's killing.
Look, I don't want fear of the virus to be replaced by fear of the vaccine. The chances are, this has been studied now in 24 clinical trials, the chances are we're going to get a safe vaccine. If it has a rare side effect, we're going to have to live with that.
The one thing the government cannot do right now is speed up the production of the vaccine, and that is causing a growing concern among the millions of Americans hoping to get protection.
The U.S. death toll has topped 1,000. More than 20,000 have been hospitalized. Pregnant women and the young have been the hardest hit. Families lined up before dawn to make sure they were among the first and the few to get protected.
But this is one time. Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine.
All right, thank
By declaring pandemic, they've pushed the button on this juggernaut that they've created. We've been brought up, people of my generation, to understand that a pandemic means deaths and a lot of serious cases. And that seems to have dropped out of sight, and they're lowering the threshold of a definition of a pandemic. And that is not a good thing in many ways.
And if you look at the numbers of deaths right now reported since April until now, it's just under 5,000. That gives us, if it continues to grow at the rate that it's been growing, that would give us under 10,000 deaths for the year. The CDC reported in 2003 that each year it's estimated that 500,000 people would die from the seasonal flu.
And as a GP, I've seen dozens of cases of swine flu. We can see that overwhelmingly, in healthy adults, it's a very mild illness, really not much worse than a bad cold.
Dr. Tom Jefferson says the response to the virus is driven by vested interests. Academics, governments, the World Health Organization and drug companies who all stand to gain.
We're trying to sort of get the public health officials to answer why there's so much odd stuff going on around how aggressive the vaccinations are being pushed, especially in the United States. As
I said, the vaccine is being fast-tracked, is being rushed onto the scene, and the normal safety tests that are done before a vaccine is introduced will be very, very limited. And the last time that a vaccine was given nationally against a swine flu pandemic was in the USA in 1976. And then, after vaccinating millions of people, they stopped that vaccination trial because of an increased rate of side effects. There was something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, a paralyzing disorder, that meant that they had to stop the trial. And we don't know that that's not going to happen again, for example.
All right. Okay, Dr. Richard Halverson, thank you very much.
H1N1 and the flu vaccinations are not tested. They're not safety tested. In fact, when you look, for example, at Rupert Murdoch's mother, Elizabeth, who runs the Royal Victorian Hospital, where the pregnant women were tested with these new vaccines, the tests were based on old flu vaccine studies.
In fact, if you had to choose, you'd probably choose at this point the swine flu over the regular seasonal flu.
All right, would you give it to your kids?
I definitely would not.
You would not, all right? And in fairness, I've talked to 3 doctors in 3 days now, and all 3 have said absolutely they would give it to their kids. They intend to give it to their kids. They're going to take it themselves, but you say no.
I definitely would not. I've seen it devastate people.
It's been rushed to market. There are high levels of adjuncts which basically make it more potent, so they can, the proven neurotoxin has 25,000 times the level of mercury than would be considered toxic if it was a food or water. It's too big of a risk.
All right. Dr. Kent Holtorf, an expert on infectious diseases. That's the other side. We've heard both sides now. Thank you so much.
So we're dealing with a very strange and creepy scenario, especially with the response globally being directed through the Pentagon. U.S. Northern Command is in charge militarily around the entire globe in terms of the public health response to this virus, which doesn't appear at this point to be highly lethal or even more virulent than the normal flu. And yet they've escalated it to a level 6, the highest level the WHO has, and the U.S. military is in charge both domestically and internationally of the response.
And these emergency powers that were declared, they can actually, quarantine people in large numbers and say, you either do it or not, else we'll put you here and we'll inoculate everybody. And if this flu is not so serious, which it doesn't sound to be, they were yelling and screaming about 1,000 deaths. Well, regular flu kills many, many more than that every year, and nobody gets all up in arms about it.
Because it is a very strange appearing virus. So there was a story earlier in this year, Baxter, the company, they were found to be shipping out cases of H3N1, I think, which is the normal flu vaccine. It's about 18 countries, and in there was a live avian flu viruses. Most people who have experience in those kind of lab conditions know that that's not the type of thing that happens from pure negligence. It's possible, but many things are possible but not likely. Same thing with the origins of this flu. And they were caught, luckily, the shipments were caught before they were given to people in these 18 countries, but it brought up a lot of questions about either criminal negligence, because anyone who's familiar with working at laboratory with things like vaccinations, it's very difficult to come to a scenario where a live, especially an avian flu, is mixed in with a flu vaccine. And then the other side of it is actually the response by governments in terms of this, which would include, the fact that the WHO brings it up to a level 6 pandemic, change the definition of pandemic in order to sort of do that. So that, so that's one thing. And then the other side of it is the fact that the U.S. Pentagon is basically in charge of it, both nationally but internationally.
There are also plans that will ensure that you do not freely travel, nor will you be able to really go anywhere without proof that you have had the vaccination at the point that the government mandates that certain levels of the population take the inoculation.
Under these emergency, they do get a lot more power. They can have power to dismiss certain regulations. They also have power to do a lot more. And if they want to regulate the movement of people and watch them, this could be a very bad thing. But this whole idea that we're getting inoculation after inoculation, I do believe there's something to natural immune systems being knocked down by this.
What you're looking at, what's obvious, is that H1N1 triple recombinant, which is a combination of avian from Asia, a swine from Mexico, and a 1918 dead corpse's Spanish flu that was dug up in 1997, that this is a virus that combines genes from those three sources. It's obvious to anyone who has any intelligence and is aware of the science and aware of the genetics that it is really a man-made laboratory creation, much like the 1977 outbreak. And so the people that are getting vaccinated with this live, genetically engineered virus has now posed a huge threat to the planet of recombining with other things such as H5N1, which is circulating thanks to Baxter Corporation's shipping it in regular flu vaccine. So in essence, all we're looking at is right now a time component component whereby somebody inject H1N1 is going to come in contact with H5N1, it's going to recombine, and then they'll sneeze, and then basically you've started a global pandemic with a hideous new plague. That is the greatest risk I see, and I suspect strongly that's what the plan is. They're saying, and what this whole emergency declaration by Obama is about, they're predicting a, quote, hurricane